My coaches only like my classes. Feels great to say that, but it's actually bad for your business. So how do you ensure a high level of service delivery across your entire coaching staff? And what are the rewards for doing so? You got the answer today on Run a Profitable Gym. I'm your host, Mike Warkentin. Please hit subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. And do me a favor, if this show was helpful, hit a like on this video so we know we're doing the right stuff. Kenny Markwardt is a certified two-brain business mentor. He's one of the big wheels at Sandpoint Strength and Conditioning in Idaho with his wife. He's also the host of our Lifting Buddy podcast, Strength Coach Collective, where he interviews some of the top coaches in the fitness industry every week. So check out that show. We'll put a link to it in the show notes so that you can watch that if you're interested in developing your coaches. That's exactly what we're talking about today. Kenny, welcome here. I know you're heading off to Mexico in a matter of hours. We're going to whip this off and help some gym owners. How do you feel about that?
Love it, man. Excited.
All right. And the Strength Coach Collective is going really, really well. You've had some amazing guests on there. So I'm kind of curious to see what your take is now that you're talking to experts. We're going to take this right down to ground level at the gym where the rubber meets the barbell, so to speak. So let's talk with it. I like rewards. I always want to talk about what's in it for the gym owner. So we'll talk rewards. What happens to business metrics when all the coaches in the gym are delivering at an A or A plus level?
It's magic. I mean, it legitimately is. Whether it's personal training, which is kind of an obvious one, to have the universality of the quality and delivery and authority of good coaches, of the staff, being able to do those things, like that's an obvious one, the personal training side. But the specialty stuff too is where I've really seen personally the benefits, and my mentees have seen the same thing. So for example, my youth coach, who's phenomenal, he's built such a big authority in our community through the work that he's done with the youth, that he's built a huge arm of our business to where it's like a third of our income now for the gym. A third of our revenue is our youth stuff. Yeah.
And he's that good.
That's great. And it's one of those things. Yeah, he's that good. Wow. It's one of those things. Like I think some of us as owners and coaches, we try and say, oh, my coaches are just as good as me, or they're actually better than me. And we try and kind of, shed or take some of the light off of us and put it on our staff. Like this is legitimately, I have that, not just with him, but with all my staff. And it's just magic.
Wow. A third of your business. So all of a sudden you find a guy who's incredible. You put him in a great spot. You give him the model to succeed. You tell him, this is how we run the business and so forth, but you give him this, playing field and stay within the lines and so forth. And he just crushes it. And all of a sudden it's a third of your business.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Wow. And again, it's rewarding financially, but it's also rewarding as so I'm a father as well, but it's like seeing your kids flourish in the ways that you hope them to. And I don't mean that in a pedantic, like I'm trying to, he's my child or anything, but at the same time, to see him and my other coaches to step out into the light and let them really truly shine and hear the feedback from the parents of the kids themselves. And then for the other coaches, the clients that they're working with, to hear what they're experiencing through the coaching that they're receiving is the greatest thing I could ever hope for.
Yeah. And we often, it's tough to track length of engagement and tie it directly to one thing because there's so much that goes into that number. But, we have to say without, quoting it was 2.5 months increase or whatever, better coaching is going to produce better results for clients and people are going to stay longer. Have you seen that too, just in a general sense?
Oh yeah. It's such a less of it's very, the transactional nature erases, and it's more of a relational, like these people see this as something that is a have to in their life. The relationship they have with their coach, whether it's, just having the support, but also seeing the results that are provided through that coaching is just, it's not an option for them anymore. And so, yeah, they stick around forever.
Yeah. The worst feeling, and tell me if you've had this back in the day, the worst feeling for me as a gym owner was when someone would come and a great client would come and say to me, hey, can I talk to you quietly? And they bring me aside and then say, this coach kind of sucks. And It wasn't a personal thing. It was like a concern for the business where they were trying to help me out and say, like, I'm not trying to be an ass. I'm not trying to dig into someone or cut someone down, but you got a problem here. And I was like,
yes.
Oh, have you had that?
Oh yeah,
I think
definitely. We all have. And I think there's two sides of it. One is that as owners step out of the light, there's always a little bit of the emotional disconnect that people feel. They feel like, oh man, we had this thing with you, and they look up to you as the only person that can deliver the service. And so there's a little bit of that. I think that owners just need to kind of wrap their heads around that. That's always going to happen. Yeah. But there's also the quality side of it. There is probably some truth to what they're saying. What I found to be the most effective in that is actually being transparent with what we're doing to develop and evaluate our coaches on.
Ooh, there you go. We'll get in. I'm not going to ask you what that is because that's coming up in just a sec. I'll ask you for a couple more examples. Have you seen anything? Because you're a mentor, and so you talk to lots of gym owners. When you see them improve their coaching and their service delivery at their gyms, do you see any other metrics improve as well? I want to make sure it's not just you.
Yeah. I mean, qualitatively, their lifestyle improves. Like the owner, like there's just so much better, like the sleep that you get at night, knowing that you're not worried about that morning coach who you're not super sure about. Like there's something that's unquantitative, but qualitatively about that's so nice. But yeah, the same thing with mine. Like I've seen that where coaches develop their specialties, they develop their qualities, like the revenue grows, the length of engagement grows. I mean, honestly, everything just gets better.
Yep. Yeah. And I've seen that. So listeners, what you've got there is exactly what Kenny said. You're going to get some length of engagement benefits. You're going to get some happiness benefits. And those two are maybe slightly intangible and that you can't say directly a number, but revenue does go up if you get a great coach, because that coach can be then sell personal training. People want to work with that great coach. You've got opportunities for specialty programs or even like a semi-private program where you're adding things to your model. Great coaches who are really skilled and get results for clients make a business better. And you can tie it to some very clear metrics and also some like more ethereal stuff, but also like Kenny said, the ability to sleep at night knowing your morning coach isn't going to screw it up the next morning. So those are your benefits. We're going to get into how you do it now. First of all, what's a good coach? How do we, and can we tie good coaching to client results in any way? Because Chris has talked about this a lot, but a lot of gyms don't do that.
Yes. So to find a good coach, I think this is where I see a lot of owners get hung up, is they think that the coach has to come in with experience. And realistically, I think the coach needs to come in with passion and caring and to get it. Like that's, so
soft skills.
Yeah. Soft skills. They need to get what you're doing and they need to believe in what you're doing. And they need to be good ambassadors of that. But then quantitatively, I think that they just need to you need to train them. Like that's your job. I think that as an owner, your new job is to coach coaches to get them to be good and to start them off with just a baseline and then progress them as they go, which I think we're going to get into it with evaluations and training. But to make a good coach, I think it's that growth mindset tied in with the soft skills.
Client results. Now, you could just say like, you got a coach who's got great soft skills. That means they're going to connect with your clients better. You can teach them all the other stuff, like how to teach the snatch and things like that. Like all those things can be instructed. And I've heard about this regularly. Hire people with great soft skills. You can backfill certifications and credentials, and you don't need 100. You probably need like 1, maybe 2 if it's a specialty. But you get these great coaches. They connect with clients and they build relationships. And you hinted at this in the early part of the show. Once they build these relationships, you have this, it's like you're seeing the same care provider over the course of a year, and you have this amazing rapport. You understand, the coach understands this person, what the goals are. It can't not produce better client results, right? If I'm working with you, Kenny, for a period of a year, and you know that I want to get my deadlift to 400 pounds or whatever it is, and we're all focused on that, you're going to celebrate my achievements. You're going to know exactly how, when I get there, you're going to celebrate it because you know how big a deal is it. We're going to talk about it along the way. And I'm not going to want to leave because I'm getting results. You're showing me the results. And we have this trust factor. I don't want to start with anyone else. Have you seen that personally and in your business?
Yes, for sure. In fact, that's one of the things that we train our coaches on it right away is demonstrating results, like showing them that they're getting closer to the goal.
Yep.
Every single session. And I think I don't want to go too far into the rabbit hole of program design, but there is an aspect of that you can demonstrate that almost every single session to show them how they are getting closer to their goals, even if it's not like as immediate as you're not going to test their 1 rep max every day, but you're going to show them and tell them how they are progressing and getting closer so that they understand, like they get that little carrot and they get the breadcrumb along the way to reward them, show them this is working, and they buy into your authority more. And then they just want to keep coming.
If you want to dig into stuff like that, topics exactly like that, Strength Coach Collective is the podcast that Kenny hosts along with Chris Cooper and Chris Guerrero. We have leading lights of the fitness industry on there, including Jason Khalipa, Coach Mike Berger, other guys like that. Dan John's coming up. Check out that show. That's where you can dig into topics like this. Now, Kenny, evaluating coaches. So here's the meat of it. Evaluating them. How often do you do it, and how do you do it?
For our new coaches, we evaluate them from the very beginning. Like we start their journey with an evaluation, like before they're ever on the floor, before they ever do any shadowing. We just get them a baseline, just like we just talked about with clients. Like we want to show them results. Yep. And so to know where their baseline is from the absolute outset is imperative. And so we'll just say, hey, this is what our rubric is, and this is where you are right now. Let's have a conversation about it. It's not a tearing down of like, hey, you stink in all these areas, so we got to work on this. It's more of a conversation around, hey, let's talk about your background. Let's talk about your knowledge. Let's talk about your skills in these areas. And then as an owner and coach or head coach, you're going to want to try and move them along to a certain level that says, okay, well, this is now you are coaching, you are a coach for us. You've hit these things. So it starts at day 0. Yep. And then with a new coach, we evaluate them every single shadowed session just based on hitting certain markers. So we use a leveled system that as a new coach, we really want them just focusing on the basics. And so like, rather than overwhelm them with a 2-page list of what makes a black belt coach, we want to get them just focused on the basics. And it's a very nurtured mentoring kind of a relationship. Say, hey, look, these are the only things I want you to deal with. And then we're going to help you with those things as we go. So we do that for their first 8 to 10 sessions, depending on their performance there. And then after that, it's every quarter. So we do the same thing every quarter as they progress.
Yeah. And I talked to Carl Solberg, one of our other mentors. He and Oscar Johed in Sweden created this amazing coach ascension model. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes. And one of the things that really struck me when I talked to Carl, he's like, don't evaluate your coaches against the gold standard for all coaches. He's like, that's gloriously unfair to a new coach because you have this giant pile of stuff that a great coach would know. They know nothing. They just started and you're evaluating on day 1 or day 0, you said. So he's got these cool levels of like, here's what we expect from you at this stage. And it's just a smaller list of like basic stuff that's essential to get to this next level. You've got this longer list and so on and so forth. Then eventually he's got a whole colored system of belts and so forth, essentially to move people along. And they come with pay raises and things like that. If I think it's the black belt potentially is the top one. I'm not sure if you remember. Do you remember what it is?
It is brown. We use that same system. That's exactly what I was referencing. There you go. Yeah. Yep. And it is currently brown. I think that they and we are trying to work on what makes for a black belt or master level coach. So
well, you must defeat the master before you can be the master, right?
That's right. Exactly. Right. 10,000 hours.
Just a one box thing where it's like, you must kill me. Yeah. Anyway, but the whole thing behind this thing is a level system that says we start slow. And you get better. And as you get to these different levels, we're evaluating you on different criteria. Of course, the lower things don't go away, but they become natural for that coach. And at the upper level, it's more stuff, better stuff. And that's really cool. I love what you said, quarterly evaluations. I was great at evaluating a coach once. And then 8 months later, I'm like, whoa, things are crappy. That's my fault, right? I didn't do a thing about it. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes, and listeners, you can take a look at that stuff and really dig in and say, like, what can I do? What system can I create? And it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to rewrite the Bible here. You can just create these small checklists, evaluate regularly, and then that's going to be a key to getting results for that. So now let's talk about this, improving coaches, because this is the hard part. This is the thing. I could tell something was wrong. I didn't know how to fix it. How do you get your coaches to a higher level? And what do you do especially about those really weak links?
I think that what you referenced about not doing it until there's a big problem, that not doing that is what you need to do. So making it a conversation that happens consistently. When I said that a good coach is somebody with a growth mindset and who represents the brand authoritatively and authentically, like those people really do want to improve and they want to be better coaches and they want to have those conversations about how to be better coaches. So making that a part of the culture and continually looking to the evaluation and continually having those quarterly conversations about, hey, where are you right now? And making it a conversation. I think that's the point I missed in that is like, it's not a degrading, it's not a you suck. It's a, hey, where do you feel like you are right now? Like where are your weakest links? I find that to be very constructive, and it's almost always a productive conversation where they get it. Like they know where their weak links are. And so I get to then, or my head coach gets to help them improve. So unless it's an egregious thing, I find that just by continually doing that, it becomes a part of the culture and a part of the growth of the staff.
It sounds like mentorship. Like what you're describing sounds like mentorship, where you're saying, like, how can I make you better and give you a career in this industry? And the coach is like, oh, thank God. So it's not like, okay, you're coming to the office because I'm pissed about something and we're going to talk about what happened in 10 a.m. class. It's not that. It's like, how can I help you create a great career in my business? And the coach is like, this is an amazing thing. I have a question about this. I'm kind of nervous about this thing. I don't know how to teach the muscle up really well. And away you go. And all that stuff works great. So I believe it was Carl or Oscar that said this to me. The idea is you're going to tell coaches at every single session when we review, I'm going to tell you something to improve on. And that means they're prepared right away, where they're not like walking in knowing that something went bad or whatever. They know that they're going to get a point of feedback and something to improve on no matter what. Have you seen that work, or do you use something like that?
Yeah. And I mean, how's that any different than your athletes? Like people come to you for coaching, right? And that's something that we talk about in our evaluation of the coaches, is that every athlete should leave with something to work on, or some area of improvement, or something to constructive. And the same thing, if you build that into your culture of that it's normal to get feedback and it's normal to get something to improve upon, there's no more like, there's not an authoritative like thing that feels bad to anybody. That's just a mentorship role, and it's a friend role, and it's like everybody's trying to get better. And I think that owners tend to shy away from that because they're uncomfortable with the idea of evaluating somebody, where really they're just trying to mentor their coaches.
Yeah. So, and that's it. Like the difference between evaluation and like ticking boxes on a checklist, being very stern about it and saying, hey, what can I help you with, is very different, but that makes really all the difference in the world. So we've got a couple of things there we'll go over. You got to do it on a schedule. You have to have some system for doing it. So you've got to be able to say, okay, what are my standards and what do I want you to achieve? What is a 10 out of 10? What's a 5 out of 10? Like you have to have those things in place. Is there anything else that's missing from that? What else would you add into that to get these coaches up to a good level?
We put a big emphasis on coach training as a group. So all of our staff meetings have a coach education part.
I like that.
And so that can be really big sometimes, or it can be really small, but every single one of our meetings consists of some sort of coach education. We've played around, like we've done things where everybody is expected to go through modules on a certain either certification or education thing that we go over for a month. And then we talk about and debrief at the meeting itself. Or we just go over some finer points of performance on whatever it might be in that meeting, and we all talk about it. And I think that the benefits there are, while none of us are, well, maybe there are some, but most of us are not franchises. It is important to have that feel where a coach will have a certain perspective, language, specialty, expertise. But if you can get the majority of people understanding the language and what everybody, like if there's a baseline of knowledge that's continuing to progress as a team, like you lose out on that, or you erase that. Oh, well, I only want to come to your classes, or I only want to come to so-and-so's classes, because everybody's doing the same thing and everybody's on the same page and everybody's evolving and progressing together.
I love that. So you've got evaluation structure, you've got scheduled evaluations, and then you've got sort of staff or continuing education component. I'll call it staff meeting or continuing education. Kenny, how long are those staff meetings?
1 hour. And sometimes that training is 15 minutes. Sometimes it's darn near the whole meeting. So it just really depends on what we're up to and, what it is that we're debriefing on. So,
okay. I like that. So those are 3 important things, listeners. Kenny, I'm going to ask you, as a mentor, give people one thing that they can do today. So they've heard a bunch of stuff, and you've got a coach or an owner out there who's saying, I know I need to improve my service delivery across the board. What is the first thing that you would advise that person to do today to start getting results?
You need to establish an evaluation, like what makes for a good coach. And then you need to make that part of your culture, and you need to continue to use that like as frequently as you possibly can, and just make that a thing. And I think that, the best thing that I've used in my gym and I've seen other people use in their gyms is just make that the year's focus, like announce that to the staff. Hey, this is what we are doing this year, and I need you guys to hold me accountable to this. This is how we're doing it. This is why we're doing it. This is what's important about it. And then, so there's some accountability that they can hold you to, and then you get to hold them accountable to being better coaches as well. And before we wrap, I think that's like to tie this all in a bow, and a nice little bow. You mentioned at the beginning about members coming to you about bad coaches, like, oh, this person's doing this. And I think that when you can have that as a part of your staff culture, but then also bring it to your community culture to say, hey, we are a growth oriented staff. Like, we're always going to be developing. We're also always going to be bringing on new coaches. Here's how we are doing that. We are doing staff meetings and trainings every single time. Here's how we're starting off our new coaches. And to say, like, I don't know that I would do this like in some sort of town hall, but if a member comes to you and says, hey, this coach isn't performing up to par, I don't like this coach or whatever, you can talk to him about that and say, hey, these are the things that I'm expecting for that coach at this very juncture in time. They're never going to be as good as me. I've probably coached 15,000 hours at this point. A new coach who's on hour 3, they're never going to be as good as me. But if I can look to that member and say, hey, at this point in time, I want them to be here. And as over time, we're going to get them to my level. It may be a multi-year process, but here's how we're doing it. I think that I've seen so much of an attitude shift in the people that tend to bring that feedback to me. Like, it resolves the whole issue right then and there. And if they have specific things, I can point to it on the evaluation, say, cool, like, I can talk to that coach about this. We can move it forward and everybody wins.
Yeah. And members who see and know about your training programs, like, they'll see you talking to coaches and doing training and clipboards and things like that. Or you can even just announce it in a blog or newsletter saying, hey, there's going to be some shadowing going on and whatever. They see that and they see your investment. And I think that solves a little bit of the icon problem where, like, Kenny is teaching Phil how to coach better. Therefore, Phil has Kenny's blessing, and it's a little bit less weird when Phil takes over the class that Kenny used to teach. Like, there's a lot of that stuff where there's sort of a PR element to it. But I love the idea what you said there of focusing on this for a year. And that's a really great one, because it's not a small thing. Like, coach development is like pushing a stone uphill, and it's incremental, but you do get momentum. When we get to the other side, you get a coach who's bringing 1/3 of your revenue for your business. That's an incredible thing. So listeners, a really great tip here. Kenny gave you the first one is just like, get an evaluation system. You can just use a simple one, but do that today. The long-term thing is maybe you focus on this for a year, and this becomes a huge part of you as the CEO mentoring your staff to become better as a group, to serve clients, get better results for them. And the rewards are huge. You sleep at night, people stay longer, they spend more money, and Kenny said, like, financially, things get better for the owner, but it also becomes a happiness, a length of engagement, and client results thing. So everybody wins. Kenny, thank you so much for this. I hope you have a great trip to Mexico, and we'll see you on Strength Coach Collective very soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, my pleasure. That was Kenny Markwardt. This is Run a Profitable Gym. Thanks for listening. On your way out, please hit subscribe. And if you don't mind, put a like on this video. We'd really appreciate it. And you can check Kenny out on Strength Coach Collective for more shows just like this.